Hey, everybody. Welcome to the second installment of Let's Talk Politics. I'm Corey Tanisoff here with co host Gerald Mendoza, and I'm just going to talk politics. And we're going to start it off on a little bit of an international level, something that's impacting everybody worldwide. There's about an 800-pound pachyderm in the room, and we're going to address it. Gerald, go ahead.
Well, I don't know if you guys have seen this or not, but gas prices today went negative for barrels. This is the first time I've ever seen it in my life, obviously. I'm so used to high gas prices. I remember having $5 a gallon for diesel just 12 years ago, and now companies and storage companies are paying to get rid of oil barrels in their stockpile so they have more room to produce something. So this is, you know, OPEC's fault. Let's be honest, but yeah, it's OPEC's fault. But this is something unprecedented. We've seen falling gas prices. By the way, they were falling right before the coronavirus started, but it definitely didn't help. Now that the entire travel industry, the airline industry, a lot of the you know seafaring shipping industry has just completely gone flat at this point in the world. So that didn't help. So gas prices are extremely low. Like they're about $1.80 something here in Bowie, and they're how much are they over there in
The
Glenburn?
171 that just dropped down.
171. Yeah, it's insane. The national average, I believe, is 182.
Yep.
Yeah, lowest
Well,
gas prices I've ever seen.
and that's just going to keep on dropping because the issue here is that so this will help everybody in America who drives a car. That's
Yeah,
what it's going to do. It's going to, make gas prices cheaper. You can fill your tank for $15. It's going to be no problem. But the problem lies in the repercussions of this. When one of your number one commodities in the entire world drops negative, we're going to see a bounce back. And we're going to see it either rubber band and immediately start shooting up higher than it was before all this OPEC crisis and the oil wars going on right now, nonviolent oil wars. We're going to see it, have some kind of bounce back, and it's going to fall back on the economy of these countries that are in charge of it. And hopefully it'll look bad on OPEC and put them in a position where they maybe release some of their stranglehold on the oil industry.
yeah. Because most of the rest of the world, their biggest oil companies are the nationalized oil companies. So the governments take control of whatever they're doing, about how much they produce, how much they export, what they want to price at, everything. So that's why it's a national. It's a really uh, politically charged process whenever you want to start doing something with gas prices, because these countries for the most part depend on it, especially the ones in the Middle East. It's basically their main form of income at this point still. They're doing a lot more financial investments, but still they couldn't have gotten there without oil prices and the explosion that happened just a couple decades ago. And obviously Russia, being Russia, wants to pick a fight with OPEC. Decides they push OPEC to start doing a price war, and now, you know, of course, we as consumers at the moment right now are not really complaining because, like you said, hey, I can fill up my car for real cheap, pennies on the dollar, basically. But like you also said, the repercussions that we're going to face later down the line is going to be a lot harder, especially if this economy in this country, especially, is primed for a recession, or if we're primed for another global recession. You know, low gas prices aren't going to help, and it's going to end up being a huge mess.
No, and the way that I'm looking at it right now, especially with this oil, is you come, you want to buy 150 barrels of oil, and they're going to have to owe you $500 for coming to pick it up. So that's what that looks like in the current state of that. But if you
Right.
think the crackdowns, if you think that the government restrictions are painful now, just wait until the market reopens and the aftershock of the economic crash that we are going through right now.
Yeah, exactly.
It's one of those issues that you're on the news and you only hear about one thing, and it's coronavirus this, coronavirus that. There's nothing else that anybody wants to say, because if they do, then it's going to seem like they're dismissing the issue, where they're playing around it. But we've got something serious on our hands right now. We're looking at an unprecedented drop right before we poured in all that money into the Nasdaq and Dow Jones. I believe it was Dow fell 1,000 points in a day.
Yeah.
And then they pumped the money into the economy, with the Federal Reserve just dishing out money and printing it off, because apparently that's what Keynesian countries do.
Yeah, we could have a longer conversation about that.
And then the next day we saw it fall 800 points. So that just goes to show that that's not working. And we have a bigger issue at hand here than just talking about low oil prices or that businesses are closed. We've got a bigger problem at hand. Markets fluctuate. And right now we are at the low fluctuation, and it does not help that everything is shut down.
Yeah. So segueing from that, since everything is shut down, basically, we know that if not most, if not all, the states have done it in the best interest of the health and safety of their populations, trying to keep everybody from contracting this COVID-19 virus that's going around, trying to make sure that these people aren't um, you know gathering in large groups to cause the amount of cases to rise exponentially as it was at the beginning. I mean, in a matter of in 1 week, it went from a couple of cases a day to hundreds of cases a day, and then to thousands of cases a day. Now we're at, I believe, the average is around 22 to 25,000 cases, new cases a day here in this country alone. The world. I think we're reaching, hopefully, based on some models, we're reaching a possible plateau and limit for where the curve is. The curve that everyone's talking about, that coronavirus curve, that hopefully will start going down in terms of the amount of people who get it every day or the new cases that show up every day. But like you also said, this economy is suffering because of the fact that everything is closed, that almost every single business, all non-essential businesses, all entertainment, businesses, everything that isn't deemed an absolute public need right now is shut down. So there's less money, there's less places for people to go to spend money to stimulate the economy. So these stimulus checks that people have been getting recently, they might not have a lot of options to do anything with it if most of the stores and places they go are closed. And a lot of Americans are getting frustrated with it. I can understand that some places are worse than others, some places are better than others. And some the president has been more than reluctant to issue a national stay-at-home order. There's probably some legality behind that. That means like he probably can't. Like it probably the issue stays with the state governments and all that. But the reluctance is that the economy is going to take a lot longer to start up. It's because everything's shut down. So I'm intrigued by the question, the trade-off that everyone keeps on asking. What is going to be this, the effect of shutting everything down and keeping it shut down for a long time? Is it going to be that, what's worse? Is it worse that, 2.3% of the population is going to die, or that, this might be a recession that could last more than, I don't know, maybe even 5 years of straight downlining on the markets and everything?
Well, I mean, you look at it right now, and what we've got right now is an economic, we're in turmoil. And it goes beyond just a shutdown or a stay-at-home order. You've got entire industries that are collapsing under their own two legs because they don't have a chair to sit on right now. You've got entire industries being hampered. The entire entertainment industry, the flight industry, the cruise ship industry. And in Maryland, we're particularly hit hard in the fishing industry. As you know, crab season's coming up, which is one of the most Maryland things to do, is sit down and pick at crabs for about 4 to 5 hours. Eat an entire bushel, whatever. Now we're sitting here and we can't do that, right? It seems like such a little small problem, but then that has economic repercussions. Is that the crabbers aren't going out there because there's no demand for it, and the ships aren't sailing because there's no demand for it, and the restaurants aren't opening and people aren't getting paid because there's no demand for it.
The tourism industry right now is at an absolute standstill. I've talked to my friends about it. Some of my friends about it. Some people, I've heard mentioned online. This year's summer is potentially completely over before it ever started.
Yeah, I mean but we've got bigger issues here.
Right.
The tourism industry is just one of many, and I've got half a mind myself. As soon as this ends, I'm traveling somewhere. Doesn't matter where. Don't really care. I'm going to go to BWI and say, "Give me a ticket," and they go, "Where?" And I go, "I don't care."
Like, surprise me.
I can get back. Surprise me. Here's $500. Get me somewhere and get me back. And that's it. And I can't figure out if most people are going to be thinking about traveling because they've been trapped at home for so long, or if people won't have the resources to be able to do it. So that only just prolongs the traveling and tourism freeze that we have going on. Now, the other issue that comes in hand with that is protection of the people, because we've got to make sure that everybody has their needs taken care of. And those $1,200 checks that are going out and $500 more for each dependent you have under 16 years old, they're helping out. But the issue about, you got $1,200, how long can you stretch that? If you're a single mother with 3 kids, then you'll get 2,700. But how long does 2,700? Let's say you're living in Ellicott City or Columbia, where rent for a 2-bedroom is about $1,700.
Right.
Right. For in not like not the great areas. Not saying that there's a bad area of Ellicott City and Columbia that even exists that you can call bad. But
right.
I mean, unless you're living in a vacuum and you've only known it, then you're going to say, oh, this side is bad. But it's not West Side Baltimore. We're not talking about Park Heights and North Avenue here. We're talking about down by Long Reach. We're talking on Tamar. And that's what people call bad. But a place posted around there will be $17 a month, right?
Right.
Not 27 and that's 17. Well, then now let's say that you've got to pay gas, electric. You got to pay for food. You got to pay stuff to just keep your kids being kids, So then you're down to maybe $500 and grocery, grocery bill for 4 people for a month. That's going to take you out $200, $300.
At
so
least.
You're already down pretty much your entire check in the span of a month. Now, if you're, a mother who works as, I could think of anything, you name it, a flight attendant, nixed. They don't need you right now. If you're anything that requires you going into your work and you're not coming out, then this impacts you more than anything else.
If you're a waiter,
you're getting nothing.
I mean, you almost ended up.
You're almost a contractual employee by designation as a waiter. You're not getting, your tax help out. And a lot of waiters around, to be honest, are not working. They're not doing W-2s because they don't make enough to do that. They make it off as tips, and those are untaxed.
Right.
So, or if their cash tips are untaxed. And as working in the restaurant industry, as I had for about 3 years, if you get a tip, you're not going to report it. But it goes miles and miles beyond any one instance. You can't even begin to compile it. And with those $1,200 checks that people are getting, they're not giving it to the state of Maryland. They're not giving it to other citizens of the state of Maryland. They're giving it to multinationals that are open.
Right.
Because you look around and you see what's open. You see Domino's Pizza. You see Target, Walmart, Advanced Auto Parts.
You see Wendy's.
Restaurant, Wendy's. Right, exactly. Chipotle, Noodles and Company, whatever you want to say. They're multinational and they're open. But these small businesses who can't take that hit because they don't want to, because they know their employees and they care about them. They don't want them coming in. But the place down the street makes the meanest tuna salad sandwich that I've ever had in my entire life, and they're closed. Which means that everybody who works in an establishment is making exactly $0 right now.
Right.
Where it would be pouring in however much they made a day, and now you got nothing. So they're giving all this money out to especially Amazon. And Amazon's not pouring out any more for the people of Maryland than Walmart is. They are hiring right now. So if that's something that you need to do, go and put an application, work in Baltimore. But it's minding your P's and Q's, man. You're just sitting there and you look at it and the money's not going to other Marylanders.
Right. And, especially in the tourism industry, a lot of these shops and everything that pop up around Ocean City or wherever you are, the Chesapeake Bay, most of them are family-owned small businesses that actually need the help.
Oh, and if I'm jumping in right here, Ocean City is in ruins because of this.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you can imagine you're a city that is your entire yearly economy is built on about 4 months. You make all the money that you're going to make in the entire year.
They didn't even get senior week this year.
You don't get your senior week. You didn't get spring break, and you're not getting spring break. You're not going to get the first days of summer, and you're not getting May. You're probably not going to get June. You'd be damn lucky if you got July, and chances are you're going to see some action in August and September. But by then,
if you're going to be so desperate for it, and you're not going to be able to
Exactly. I mean, there's people who have storefronts and they're looking at, expensive payoffs on their rent and their mortgages, but it's just not coming in. They've got budgetary concerns. Yeah. They're made. It's an industry based on summer. And when this hits right now, it's the worst possible time.
Right. Because hopefully by December, when the second travel spike hits, hopefully things will be clear enough so that you can enjoy it and go somewhere, and you'll be able to travel around the winter and like maybe somewhere else in the world or to go see your family or something.
I'd be
But
surprised if it wasn't back up.
yeah, I'd be surprised if it wasn't back up. Um, but yeah, this Ocean City is a ghost town. It's gonna be like that for like another 2 months.
And every month ticks away at the days, and that ticks away at the dollars that these, and even the people who live there.
Yeah,
People who have their real estate out there, people who their kids go to Salisbury University, they're out there making no money, making nothing. They can't hold it down over there.
right. And that's just one spot. So multiply that by I don't know how many beaches are on
That's just one spot.
around the world. Right.
Multiply that by 50 states, because
Exactly.
every state is having their own economic issue right now.
Yeah.
That's it.
So we understand there's the frustration that people are feeling by being told to stay home, that not being able to work or not being able to go somewhere, not be able to help stimulate the economy, because a lot of people know that this is a really bad situation for the economy, but you know if nothing's open and everything's shut down and only essential workers and all that keep on, people get frustrated, people get antsy, people want to see the state open back up, but you also can't, on the other side of the coin, you can't rush things, especially when you weren't doing much to begin with. Like let's look at Florida for a second. They took a while to enact anything, statewide. They took a while to, really crack down on people who were going to beaches and not being socially That's another thing. Everyone has a personal responsibility to, be safe and healthy. And the majority of people, for the most part, don't know how to do that. If they're told, be socially distant, So
Absolutely not. I mean, I can list off 5 people that I know personally who I see online talking about how they've got people over at their house today and how they had a little like kickback on the weekend.
Right.
It's your responsibility. If you look towards, and I'm not going to sit here and play high and mighty and say, oh, if I want my summer back, you're going to have to step up. I don't care. I don't care about us having a summer back. I care about America getting where we need to go. I'm not going to pull at heartstrings and say any kind of thing that the workers need to get back. It's just how it is. It's literally the fact of the matter. That's what this boils down to, is a responsibility thing, and it's a restraint thing. And we've got people who have never once in their entire life had to exercise a single ounce of restraint or maturity. And those are the people who are going out. Those are the people that are saying, oh, I wish bars were open. I wish this. I wish I could go out. Well, I wish that,
Right.
I wish for a couple other things.
Right.
But it doesn't matter. None of it's going to matter if you have that same attitude and you keep having people over. Now, there's a difference when it comes to, like, I would argue there's a difference when it comes to seeing your family or seeing, like, for instance, my dad. I hang out with my dad about twice a week. My dad doesn't hang out with anybody. So it's just me and him. If he gets sick, then I'm sick. If I'm sick, then it's because that's what it is. I'm not going out of my way to make it some kind of festive matter that I'm inviting all my friends over to hang out. It's not what anybody should be doing right now. It's a lack of responsibility and it's a lack of maturity, and it reflects exactly on who these people are.
And this weekend, over the weekend on Saturday, was an in-car protest in Annapolis to try to reopen the state. I appreciate the fact that Governor Hogan, didn't even pay really mind to it. He had a press conference today, didn't mention it once.
Yeah,
he gets it. He's not right. He's not undermining the fact that people are frustrated, but he also knows that, even in the terms of the economy, if you're dead, you can't help our economy.
Yeah. I mean, I am a proponent of a scheduled reopen. And I think that you take certain things and you reopen like the economy and you reopen areas, not 100%. You don't hop to it and get it done immediately. We're not saying tomorrow you open all the bars and restaurants for sit-in. I'm saying you take certain things that would allow. Golf courses are closed right now. You know what the number one thing that encourages you to stay 6 feet away from people is? Golfing.
Golf.
Yeah. When are you ever 6 feet near somebody in golf?
When you're trying to mess with their putt.
When you're trying to mess with them. But
Yeah.
golf's closed. Batting cages are closed. Uh, putt. Well, putt should be because that's a group activity. You don't need that.
Yeah, yeah.
The driving range is closed. Things that are otherwise not going to be at a high risk for transfer, these are closed. I went down to the park the other day and I saw the basketball courts had wooden boards nailed on either side, clamped down over the rim. And I got to
Yeah.
say, that is the most frustrating thing in the world because people aren't going to be thinking to themselves, oh, let's go play a 5-on-5 with everybody from the neighborhood. They're not going to do that. If anybody wants to do that and anybody already has a squad that they use that, they've got basketball hoops outside their home and you can drive by any street on a given day and see a little pickup game going on. That's just the fact of the matter. You're
Right.
not going to encourage socialization by taking this off. If anything, you're hampering on people who just want to be alone and shoot some baskets. That's all it is.
I saw that, but I also saw that on someone's Snapchat story like a few weeks ago that they had been going out, but because their basketball court was the only one that had been open in the area, there was a bunch of people there. Guess what happened the next day?
Yeah,
Wooden boards.
exactly. I mean, if you were to just take this off, like skate parks, they closed down. You're not going to be next to anybody at a skate park. We're talking about closing down trails and stuff now and parks.
Are the state parks closed?
They're the thing that not in Maryland. They're not closed. I don't believe.
Okay.
But you're not going to have a healthy society in any way, shape, or form if people can't at least go outside. It's almost like vitamin D is an essential, necessary component to healthy living.
Right.
Right. And some people don't have the availability of being able to, just sit outside on their porch or sit out on their sun deck and just, bask in. For example, the only part of of any sunshine that I can get is if I open my blinds at 11 o'clock in the morning and I sit out on my balcony and smoke a cigar. That's all I can get if I don't go outside. And there's people even worse than me that don't have that kind of action. They're sitting on the other side of the complex and they don't get sun until 5 p.m. and then they only have it for an hour. It's you can't have people and expect them. And it's also necessary for immune health. It's necessary for your whole body's health. So if you're keeping everybody pent up inside, they need some kind of reason or some kind of option to be able to get out.
Right. Yeah. I mean, what I'm able to do, thankfully, there's a small trail like around our house where you can just go walking around, I think it'd be fine if you could trust people to keep their distance. And for the most part, when there have been people around there, the couple times that I've gone out, yeah, people have been keeping their distance. People, you don't get close to anybody. You don't, it's not like a group outing or anything. You're out there, and there's other people out there, but you're not next to them. You see them on the other side. It's a small little lake, and then a little path that leads to a river on the side of the road. You're by yourself most of the time. You go out for a walk, get some fresh air, get some sunlight, go back. It's actually fine. I get that, and I think that is necessary because you can't just stay in, this room I'm in right now only has a tiny window in the corner, and that's it. That's what some people get every day, and they're not able to go outside. I understand, that's completely unhealthy. You need some sunlight. You need to be able to go outside and do something. So like I said, I get that there's a need to, and I think that's what the president's trying to outline. He just probably didn't communicate it well. Is that states, when they reopen, when they feel they're ready to reopen, need to phase it in. Like you said, this isn't just like open the doors, open the floodgates. Everybody go out and contaminate each other again. That's how you get second waves. So it has to be done correctly. It's nothing this generation's ever dealt with before, so I understand that everyone's trying to figure it out on the fly. It's not easy, but
I would say it's nothing any generation has ever had to deal with before, honestly. Never a full stay-at-home order and locking down borders between Canada and the United States.
on 1918, I thought they did that with the Spanish flu.
Who's alive from 1918?
Well, that's what I meant. This generation, like these, yeah.
Anybody who's alive on this earth has never had anything like this.
Yeah. So it's crazy. It's hard to try to figure out how to balance, what you need to do, especially as a state leader, when you have people on both sides of the aisle trying to tell you what to do, or trying to tell you you should take our side and open the state back up so that we can go do what we need to do, and you know, get outside and not be cooped up in our house all day. And then the other half of the coin is that, you risk, losing whatever mitigation progress you have, and you end up, you know, getting more people infected, causing a second wave of, of numbers that grow exponentially every day. It's a hard balance to find. I wouldn't want to be in a position of leadership right now. I really don't.
Well, I'll tell you what, this has even further reaching consequences for these kind of state leaders, because this is going to be something that we're going to hear about in debates for the next 20 years. This is absolutely going to be something brought up about pointing fingers and saying, you didn't do the right thing when it came to the COVID-19 shutdowns. You didn't handle your state well, and now you want to be president. Is if something like this, because like I can hear it in my head right now, is
they did that with 9/11. I mean,
they did it with 9/11, and they're going to do it with coronavirus, and they're still doing it about 9/11, and they're still doing it about the war on drugs, and they're doing it on everything and policing. They're going to do it, and we're not going to be done with this. By the time 2021 hits, we're still going to hear about this for the next 20, 30 years of our life. Is in every debate, if you're talking about somebody who had a seat of power in 2020, then that first finger point is going to be that you didn't handle the outbreak and response like you should have.
Right. It's going to follow people. Whatever decision they make is going to follow people for, like you said, for 2 decades at the very least. Especially that a lot of these governors are getting a lot of, attention, national attention, and some of them might think about running in 2024. We'll see how that goes. I don't know if anyone, like, I think we talked about it last time, if Cuomo or Hogan ever run, if they would do well. But this is just,
I mean, it's more local than it is like a federal thing, especially when it comes to the pull that you have around here. I think if Hogan ran, I think he might have a good chance, but I think the name recognition is a little low. And that's the issue with just running as a Republican in Maryland and winning 2 terms. He could use that to his advantage, saying he knows how to work both sides of the aisle, which he clearly does. But, I see like responses that all the other mayors and stuff are doing. Like, do you know the number on how many states have an enforced stay-at-home order?
I'm not exactly sure. I thought it was around 42. I think it's almost everyone now, but last week I think it was like 42.
42. Okay. Well, it was, what is it? Just yesterday, China doubled their death numbers. They just announced that they had like misread it.
Yeah, sure. But yeah, I think we were all anticipating that announcement coming sooner or later.
Yeah.
And whether they would admit it themselves or not.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, we've all known, if we've been following this since January, that China mismanaged the entire situation. I mean, from the jump when it was just isolated in Wuhan, we had videos surfacing. We had the Chinese government arresting American nationals who were over there because they were, I guess, close they're close in relation to the virus, of working around it or working in their like developmental labs. And we even had a complete media blackout from China. And we saw that we saw videos coming out of Wuhan in January of like literally government carting out the dead from like these giant apartment complexes. Like they were carrying them out in mass. And there was video of mass graves, and I can't tell if that's authentic or not, but I would assume it is, just given the context that it's found in.
I think we're doing that somewhere. I think it was in New York State or something that they saw that as well.
Well, we've got these numbers that, like, we had this video since January that's been going around that people in Wuhan are completely blacked out from accessing any kind of international media, from being able to access Twitter or social media where they could communicate it. So we just have leaks. And then China comes out saying that their death toll is like this big.
Right.
We've all known since the beginning that China has been covering their asses on this one, and that they've been covering up any dirt that comes along. They can only hold it for so long. You got to hold somebody responsible for it, and I would argue that the Chinese government is more responsible than anybody in this regard.
Yeah, I think what is it? Total deaths are right now on the website that I use a lot. Says total deaths 4,632.
Yeah, the global cases have passed rearing their head at 2.5 million, and the deaths in the United States alone have passed 40,000.
Yeah,
which is such a small number. It's ridiculously small.
I mean,
deaths.
But no one's ever going to look at it like that. People are going to look at it in its magnitude, straight on and head on. They're going to look at it as it's 40,000 lives lost. Those are, what is that? Wartime numbers.
I wouldn't even say that.
Either way, whether it's a small number or not, based on how many cases exist and based on the contraction and the death rate and all that.
I mean, we're in a pandemic.
I mean, yeah.
40,000 people are talking about 40,000 was avoidable. 40,000 was this. 40,000 is unavoidable. 40,000 is the best case scenario, especially we're going on the second month of this. It's been, 60 days since first case in the United States, something like that?
Something like that, yes.
It's been monumental. I mean, just 40,000. We're looking at the United Kingdom has 120,000 cases and 16,000 deaths. That's 10%.
Yeah.
That's a 10% death rate. And
they have a better health system than us, they say.
They say. But I've never heard of anybody flying to England for a procedure.
That's true.
But you've got, I mean, just 40,000 people as we are getting past the peak. Like, we're past the peak of it.
I think the total number, I think based on projections, they said
China
was around,
reports just 12 new cases.
Yeah, I always look at the number of. I don't trust anything coming out of China at this point. I really don't. It's
On
bad.
Friday, China revised its death toll up significantly, including by 50% in Wuhan. So they're saying on Monday they reported 12 new cases, and on Sunday they reported 16. I don't believe that for a second. Pardon my skepticism, but I do not believe that.
Right. Okay, so back to the number of stay-at-home orders. I was right. It was 42 states that have basically told everyone to stay home. North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Iowa, and Arkansas haven't done anything yet. Haven't issued any stay-at-home orders. They say be safe, but don't. They haven't told anybody. Shut down, only essential workers and stuff like that. Wyoming, Utah, and Oklahoma have, but only in certain spots in the big metropolitan areas that they have. Other than that, it's just. I think it's. I don't even know if they're following the federal guidelines or not. But as far as I can tell, it's only big cities that have been told to stay at home.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't testify for how the flyover states and how the Midwest is dealing with this, but on the East Coast here, it's a very scheduled lockdown. You can either be at home or you have to be out with a mask now. Effective, I believe it was Friday.
It was Saturday. I think it was Saturday morning at 7 a.m.
7 a.m. Had to be anywhere outside with a mask. So I've got my little trusty one in my car that I don't take out. Rock that a little bit. Got my aviator shades on, looking all cool and fresh. But, I just can't shake the feeling that that it's just a safety blanket. That's what it is. Especially when you see how people are wearing their masks and they've got their mask on and then they want to talk to somebody and they take it off to talk to somebody. And then when they're done, they put it back on.
Which is like useless. And this is what I mean. This personal responsibility and people who don't know what they're doing. Like, people don't know how to social distance. People don't know how to wear masks. Or they're using gloves but only taking them off certain times, or they're using gloves all day without changing them.
Right.
And bringing that home. You have to be careful about what you're doing with masks and gloves. You got to know what you're doing. You got to know how to end up using it, what side to use if you don't know.
Right.
We have over here. We have my mother works at a medical office, a physical therapy office, but they have masks. So we have like a small handful for our use. We barely go out anyway, but when we do, we have the masks ready. But like, there's a certain way to do it. There's a metal metal band at the top to shape around, so that it covers everything and like keeps this surface up here uh, protected, and then it's supposed to go under your chin. Some people are wearing masks underneath their nose.
Yeah.
Some people,
They keep their nose, they like cut it off like right here. And then they sneeze and then it's everywhere and it's like you're an idiot. Or I was in Target the other day and now you have to have a mask to go in there effective last week. And I had my mask on and my dad, he just had one of my scarves and he tied it around the back so it's tight. And it heats up, by the way. It's not a comfortable feeling. But I saw this lady walk in and she had her jacket pulled like this, like with the side of her face exposed, and her jacket wasn't coming up enough to actually get anything. And then some dude was just walking around with a mask. I guess he walked in with a mask and just said, screw it, and took it off. There's a personal responsibility to just not be an idiot. But that's too much to ask.
in this country, apparently it is. I for like half the population, let's be honest.
For this world, it is. It's not even an America issue. It's not a United States issue.
This is true. It's just some people don't know how to deal with it. Some people don't know how to don't like to think straight. They don't like to think, what's the reason I'm wearing a mask? Is to protect yourself from when people are speaking to you. You're wearing gloves to protect from contamination, so the contamination gets on the gloves instead of your hands.
The gloves
People
are
are-
an extension of your hands.
Right.
And
Yeah,
then
you don't-
people the worst thing is that people will wear their gloves in at Walmart or Food Lion or whatever, and then they get out of it, and then they keep their gloves on and get in the car and drive with their gloves on. It's like as
Right.
soon as you change doing something, take them
Take
off.
them off. There are trash cans outside, so you don't litter.
Yep.
Take off. Yeah.
It's as simple as that. But getting a little more local with it, changing topics, if you don't mind me switching gears, I'd like to take a second and talk about the Baltimore mayoral race.
All right.
That's a lot of shit in a can, if pardon my French.
Let's put a little bit of context into us. You and me both, for a significant portion of our lives, lived near Baltimore, near enough so that it affected us somewhat. We went to school in Columbia, Maryland, Howard County, Maryland.
I split time living in the county for about 6 years.
Now you're in Glen Burnie,
I'm in Glen Burnie, which is Anne Arundel. But as soon as I take a 5-minute drive up 695, I'm in Baltimore County. Hit the line, take 295,
exactly
10 minutes from Horseshoe.
Yeah, I'm not that close. I'm in Bowie, but I have a sister who lives up there and all that. And let's be honest, Baltimore basically represents Maryland at this point on the national stage. People think, yeah, as much as we disagree with Baltimore, if it's Baltimore, it's Maryland, and people make that equation. So we've seen, well, I was about to say highs and lows, but we've seen mid levels and lows in Baltimore for a long time now.
We've seen lows and lowers.
We were in school when the Freddie Gray riot happened that day.
Had White Sox tickets. I had a ticket to that game.
Well, now that seems to be a regular thing with sports if they start them back up again. But
God save us.
Yeah, we've seen that, and if anything, we've seen how bad the political system is, the leadership system is in Baltimore, especially the mayors. Almost every single mayor they've had has been terrible.
Yeah, I mean, it follows, like, it reminds me of back when you take a look at the Chicago mayors and how for a span of 10 or 15 years, every single one that came in, 4 out of the 5 faced corruption charges as soon as they were out. So in Maryland, I mean, we just got off with Kathy Pugh, who,
Yes.
If you're not familiar, was found guilty of, I believe it was corruption and fraud charges.
Yeah.
Because she sold her children's book, which was rife with misspellings and being terrible, to the state of Maryland, or to Baltimore's, was it the University Medical System?
It's the University of Maryland medical system for them
Which she's a chair of.
Right. So it was insider trading.
And it was insider trading, and she used government resources to pay herself for a children's book that she approved because she's on their board. So she was found guilty of that and is now no longer mayor and has been sentenced. And right now we've got TJ Smith. Is TJ Smith the
He is the current right now the interim mayor.
Yeah.
Who took over after Catherine Pugh left office is Jack Young. He was the president of the city council. The new president of the city council is TJ Smith, and he is currently, as I understand it, leading the polls in Baltimore.
Yeah, he's leading with 22%, and the next closest, I believe, is Sheila Dixon, who's got, I think, 17%. Let me check on this, get some numbers. Sheila Dixon has 18%. TJ Smith has 22%. And City Council President Brandon Scott has 15%.
Okay. So, little background on Sheila Dixon. She was the former mayor of Baltimore from 2007 to 2010. But she ended up leaving and resigning because she was tried on 3 counts of felony theft, 3 counts of misdemeanor embezzlement and misappropriation, and a single count of misconduct in office. She received gifts for political favors in the city, and she ended up, she was found guilty on all the charges, and she ended up resigning in January 2010. So, she's running again, and for a little while, like these most recent polls have TJ Smith in front, but for a little while at the beginning of the year, she was winning. She was leading the polls, which is insane to me because you would think people would learn not to vote for frauds, convicted felons.
Well, I can give that some context here. So I'm looking at a Baltimore CBS, it's WJZ 13.
Right.
They say Sheila Dixon has 99% on name recognition compared to Smith's 71%. But she is less popular as only 31% of voters find her favorable. Then we've got Scott with 44% name recognition. And the other many candidates, let's see, here we got former Attorney General Thiru Vignaraja has 12% of voters, while Mary Miller has 9%, and current Mayor Jack Young has a whopping 7%.
Yeah, he's
the other 17 candidates. It's a thick ballot. The other 17 candidates split 2% of the vote, and 15% of Baltimore voters are undecided.
That's going to be a tough one to vote for, isn't it?
Well, I mean,
if you're living in Baltimore.
Yeah, I mean, well, Baltimore has essentially been on the lifeline in the belief system that same shit, different day, Same party, different name, doesn't matter. You've just got the same thing going on that has been happening in Baltimore for the last 30 years, ever since the drug war started in Baltimore, and that still bleeds into today. I mean, you've got a city rife with problems and nobody willing to step over party lines to turn it around and fix it. Regardless of politics or anything, nobody's doing anything to change it, and they're comfortable sitting and addressing minor concerns while not even talking about what the city needs in terms of oversight on spending and with judiciary reform and prison reform. Yeah, they're just taking down. They shut down about however many years ago the city jail on Eager Street, and now they are demolishing it, set to demolish either this year or in 2021, which would be a good step getting that out of the way and repurposing it. That's out in West Baltimore. And if they can get rid of that, then maybe that's a good step on getting some real estate in there that can make something happen. But until then, that's the only significant political change or Baltimore change that's happening in the entire city.
Yeah, it makes me think about people wanting to vote for Sheila Dixon again. The only thing that pops into my mind is Mayor Marion Barry of DC.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah. He got elected like 3 or 4 times or something. Even after, yeah. And he was, what is it? He was a crack addict?
Yes.
Crack addict and a terrible mayor.
Yes. He had been found to have a severe drug addiction to street opiates.
Yeah. I mean, I talked to my parents about it. They're like, because they grew up in DC while Marion Barry was the mayor, and they're like, yeah, he was god awful. He was one of the absolute worst executive leaders they've ever seen in their lives. And they come from Central America, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, he was bad. But, they said people kept on going back to him because he just kept on giving everyone welfare checks.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what the great city of Baltimore, if you go in Baltimore, you can literally on it's on McCullough, or right in between McCullough and Franklin Street in West Side Baltimore. You can see an abandoned building that is condemned, and right in front of it is a bench that says Baltimore, the greatest city in America. And I swear you couldn't write that up better. You could not make a political cartoon that says anything better than what that photograph would say. And that's what Baltimore has turned into. It's essentially a welfare city. The only reason that they keep voting blue is because blue gives them the checks. They allow them to run rampant with crime, and they're not going to stick hard to their very determined sergeants and foot patrol members of the Baltimore City Police Department.
And the politicians, the leaders, they know that. That's why they keep on getting involved with the police commissioners anyway. You know how many police commissioners they've had more police commissioners than mayoral resignations at this point.
Well, there was a stat back in 2003 that if Baltimore was a city the size as New York, they'd be facing 4,000 homicides a year.
Yeah,
it's so that sinks in. If Baltimore was as big as New York in the 2000s, they would face 4,000 homicides a year. So in a 10-year span, they would have lost more to murder than they would have to coronavirus.
Than the whole country would have.
The whole country has. So I think that just goes to show you the state of what Baltimore's in, and ever since that, nothing's changed. I mean, they kicked back on the war on drugs and have now resorted, and that's more of a statewide thing than it is a Baltimore thing, but have stopped doing hand-to-hands on the street, stopped kicking doors down, and stopped doing high-level drug busts, but it's still running through there. It's still running through in the projects, and it's still running through in the east side and even downtown in Baltimore. It's a citywide racket, and nobody's stepping up to change anything. So you look at the new candidates, and they just want to stay comfortable. They want to stay elected, get some name recognition, and then run for the House.
Yeah, it's bad, and it's also the leaders, they know that if they just keep on giving people welfare checks, they're just going to keep on going up in approval ratings. They can tout that later on. I had a 78% approval rating in Baltimore. Yeah, because you kept on mailing everyone free money. It's bad, and no one wants to fix the problem because it's a lot easier to just keep on paying people out states' money for welfare than do anything else. Then on the other side, if you try to economically develop a place, everyone's gonna, do you run a thin line of gentrification or something like that, or like I don't know how I feel about doing that, because I understand that you need economic development to try to kickstart a city's economy. It does. You need like a place for them to go. The Inner Harbor is not going to do it by itself.
No, I mean, you look at Baltimore and you look at, you want to call it a tourist destination, but can you name me 3 things that it's got that is not called the Inner Harbor? I mean,
Fort McHenry,
the Inner Harbor, you got Fort McHenry, and if you want to go out on a limb and say Fed Hill,
yeah,
I mean,
maybe
what is there? What is there? Right. Anything that you've got is in those areas, and what brings in money to Maryland is you've got industry, you've got shipping, and you've got tourism. And that's what Baltimore needs more of. Now, I'm not saying you turn the whole city into a New York type thing where everybody comes just to, buy from the corner stores, but there does need to be some kind of change. I mean, if you just take, a ride on Park Heights right down Reisterstown Road, you'll see hundreds of row houses that are boarded up on the front and the windows, and it says, if an animal is trapped inside, call this number. And you're going to see that every day that you go down there, and there's people living in those.
Yeah, and
I'm not sure where you can stop calling it gentrification and start calling it city improvement or even standard of living. But right now, the median income in Baltimore City is around $50,000 for household. Household income is $50,000, which I believe is $10,000 less than the United States average of around $61,000, $62,000. So Baltimore's sitting below that line, and the only reason that the number is that high is because you've got the people living up around the city limits and down in Federal Hill. You're not talking about, I mean, I'm sure if you looked up East Side Baltimore, then it wouldn't be half that.
Yeah, it's I mean, I remember going to the Ravens victory parade when it happened, and after Super Bowl 47, it was. I mean, we made one wrong turn, and we were
Yep.
Not gonna lie, we were a little bit scared. We're just like crap, 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 and you couldn't go backwards. It's a one-way street, so you had to just drive through a bunch of stuff, and you're just like, this is not the very pretty part, is it?
Yeah,
So you know,
I've never had the fear driving through Baltimore because if you don't have a problem with anybody and nobody has a problem with you, and
I mean,
that's pretty much the East Coast way, is unless you're getting out of your car and waving around $100 bills and a Givenchy purse, then I think you're pretty good on that.
the
But
problem,
still, it's not good for people who aren't used to that.
yeah,
I've got like I'm used to that. I'm used to Baltimore. I'm used to being around Baltimore, being in Baltimore, and I'm not just talking Inner Harbor and Fed Hill and south of. I'm talking in Baltimore, and you've got that, and you can do with that what you will, but there needs to be some kind of change there. You've got to have something to do over out in the cut.
And we touched on this earlier when before we started this stream. We touched on the idea that maybe a new arena or something like that could kickstart something. But if we're being honest, Baltimore would probably put the arena in the Inner Harbor area anyway.
They absolutely would. I mean, the only destination that you can say that would possibly fit it is the new area that's going to come from tearing down Eager Street,
Right.
The state or the city jail over there. And that's really all that you're going to get from that is you could put up an arena and that might bring in and stimulate the economy out there, but you're going to have the same issue that you run into down around Capital One Arena in DC, where you make a wrong turn and you're in the wrong part of town. That's all it is. I mean, literally, you're driving out of Capital One Arena, you come in the parking lot, you head down Chinatown, you go one street down, one street to the right, and you're not in a good zone.
Yeah, but if we're being honest, that's almost every single city in the world.
I mean, I've gotten to a lot of stadiums and a lot of urban stadiums and a lot of rural stadiums. Like Foxborough, Massachusetts is a very rural stadium. You go to the Patriots game there, you park, you go to the game, and then you can drive for a mile without seeing anything. You go to Buffalo Bills, you're up there, you park at somebody's house because they're selling parking for $10 and they're going to offer you chili. I'm not kidding. This actually happened to me and my mother. We went up there for a Colts Bills game. Couldn't find like the cheapest parking was in somebody's backyard. And they're like, hey, do you want to come in and have some chili before the game? And we're like, we're good. We're just going to head the game.
Right.
That's Bills Mafia right there. But, games like Atlanta Hawks, which is right there, or the Atlanta Falcons in the Mercedes-Benz Dome, that's right in downtown Atlanta. But you're not going to go anywhere without meaning to. You go to Staples Center in Los Angeles, you're not going to go anywhere without meaning to. Los Angeles Dodger Stadium out in Chavez Ravine, you're separate from the city. You're not there. There is, a bunch of, you would have to look at that in the same light that you're looking at really just DC. Because you're going to have, and with that, with building a stadium comes new expansion into restaurants. So maybe
it becomes a new, smaller tourist destination. Yeah.
Right. Restaurants and bars want to prop up around there, over on West. And they want to pop up there and they want to set up shop because they know people come back from a game. They want to hit a bar. They can't make the game. They'll sit at a bar. They want a restaurant. They'll do whatever. You set up.
Or even if you want to build around like like another type of attraction, like also in DC, if you look at the area around the wharf by the fish market,
nice area. Absolutely,
it's a nice area, and they fixed it up recently even more because the Anthem is there. Yeah,
the Anthem's put up there. They've got the nice restaurant on the corner of Kerwin's is really nice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They've got the s'mores truck sitting right out there in DC on the wharf, and then you've still got the wharf. It's still retaining its business aspect. It's still the fish market down there if you walk a block. But now they've got all these propped up nice little high rises. And it's got these nice restaurants kicking in. They got a Ben and Jerry's there. You've made it when you got a Ben and Jerry's at your block.
Right, and they're mutually helping each other because, we went there just for the fish market one time and we just kept on walking. We're like, oh no, this is a really nice area. Yep. Someone might go there for a show at the Anthem and might get there like 5 hours early to get a ticket. They might get it and still have like 4.5 hours to kill. Hey, let's go to eat some crabs.
Yep. Well, I specifically can remember about a year ago, I went to the Anthem because somebody who I knew wanted to go see a concert there, and they can't drive. So I drove her and her sister to go see it, and then we dropped her off, and then me and her sister were like, let's just check out the area. Went down to the fish market. There's a fish market. Who knew? Not I, but now I did.
Right.
So there's a fish market there. and there's a lot to do around there. So even if you're just, strolling around, still a place to go.
Yeah, and I've thought about this. I don't like this argument usually for cities when they try to go for uh, big sporting events because usually it doesn't work out in their favor. But I think at this point, Baltimore needs to try anything to try to fix themselves. And I think not necessarily an Olympic Games because that's
Absolutely not.
absolute a Pan American Games.
Absolutely not.
Probably still no.
Baltimore can't swing it. Not with traffic.
Not by themselves. You use the new model that seems to be gaining some traction in the underground, sports betting world. That you use the entire state.
I still disagree with Baltimore being used on a foundation of any kind of national or international event, and I'll tell you why. And it's because people already have a conception of Baltimore as they do. Now, when you've got people traveling from all across the world and they don't know how to maneuver American cities, they're going to get very lost in Baltimore very quick. And if in certain areas, if there's a tourist walking around not doing anything, well, they don't know the area. That's an easy target. That's an easy advantage right there. So I would disagree with the assertion. Also, Baltimore doesn't have the capacity on hotels. We don't have the industry for parking. We don't have the infrastructure for any kind of, high traffic incidents. I mean, you have a Ravens game. You check out the traffic going on around there. You go Utah Street. You go around there on an Orioles Sunday. Back when the Orioles were good, at least.
Right.
But the traffic is hard enough to hit. I mean, it would be something for LA to swing because they were already prepared for that kind of traffic, or Atlanta because they already have gone through an Olympic Games. And I don't think Baltimore is equipped for that, and I don't think Baltimore will be equipped for that unless there is a major infrastructure change in general of construction and on road servicing.
Yeah. I mean, just an idea. Obviously, you got to weigh out everything. It's definitely like, it's always, I wouldn't recommend it, but also someone's going to have the desperation in Baltimore to try to fix something instead of just keep on taking these kickbacks from, someone else's purse in the city council.
Thinking that for the last 40 years in Baltimore, nobody's come around to fix anything.
Plot twist: Larry Hogan becomes the mayor of Baltimore.
One can only hope.
One can only hope.
So, yeah, I don't think, it's hard enough running in Baltimore as a Republican, but running as a white Republican wouldn't happen.
I don't know. Maybe what's his name? Ben Carson can run. He's well known. He has the name recognition.
Yeah, and he was posted up at Johns Hopkins.
That's what I mean. Yeah, so he's one of the hometown boys,
more or less.
more or less.
Yeah. All right. Got anything else on the docket for today?
Check us out on Friday for Let's Talk Sports. We're going to be talking to draft and live reacting to the rounds 2 and 3. Other than that, we'll keep you updated and we'll see how well this thing goes with coronavirus and this economic recession looming over our shoulders.
Yep. And so that's been our Monday Let's Talk Politics episode number 2. And we will catch you all same nice time, same nice day, same nice faces. This is Corey Tanisoff and Gerald Mendoza out for episode 2.